Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Break Room. My name is Kevin Wade, and you are watching and listening to the Break Room, our little broadcast experiment from GriffinWink Advertising, the purpose of which is just to come on here once a week, Wednesdays at 2 Central, 1 Mountain Time, and just share our thoughts the way that we would if we were sitting in our break room, talking back and forth about everything that's going on in advertising, the trends we're seeing, the campaigns we're building, some stuff that excites us. And to talk about stuff that excites us, we wanted to bring on this week, I think, probably the two most excitable humans in our agency to kind of talk about what gets them hyped up about the world of advertising. So first, and we've got our president of GriffinWink Advertising, Brian Wink.
Hello.
What's up? And we have another member of our Amarillo office over there with Brian, our brand strategist, Chelsea Homan.
Woo!
What's
Hello.
up?
Oh, man.
I feel like we need to have like rockets and fireworks
and
like
hype music and
in.
walkout songs. And,
yes. I feel like
Jeez.
I kind of feel like I'm coming through the tunnel of like a basketball game and there's cheerleaders in front of me.
Well,
and I'm obviously the star.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So Chelsea hyped this up in her head a long time
I totally
ago.
failed.
Yeah, Brian, just hi.
I might need to try this again.
We just need to start over.
Bro,
and everyone needs to
that's
come
that's how my entrance is in my head for when I come into places.
You just need to like rip up a bunch of paper and like throw it in the air as soon as you come on.
Y'all would have hated me for that.
Every time Chelsea walks into anywhere, she just runs around and gives everybody high fives and hoots and hollers. And
like the hype horn, the bam, 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 just play on the phone anywhere.
He's like, you guys see this smoke around me too, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's not in my head, right? That's not my own ego. I love it.
Whatever.
But anyway, this, I mean, as y'all can already tell, these are like I said, the most excitable, hyped up humans in our agency. We thought it'd be a lot of fun to jump on here because the conversations we're always having in status reports or remote, whatever we're doing remotely, right? We're not sitting in an actual break room anymore, which makes me sad, which I think is this exercise is like a sad subconscious plea to like reach out to, like, that's why Eric and I put it together, is it was just this like subconscious plea to just like talk with other people.
Well, and I was thinking as you were doing the intro and everything, I was like, the thing that's missing is our coffee pour over and we used to have great conversations just around the amount of time it took to make a cup of coffee.
Like, that's why we had Chemexes in our break room, because you'd go in there and just like one person at a time had to like sit there and like nerd out over coffee, except for like a few people that just had the Nespresso machine in the corner that were like, y'all are nerds, and they had their coffee in 30 seconds.
Yeah, okay, so I'm that person and y'all are the nerds. And whenever I was an intern, I'll never forget this. So Kevin, for those of you that don't know, Brian and I are both now in Amarillo. I was in Lubbock at this time of this story, and Kevin was visiting from New Mexico. And me and some interns I was an intern at the time, had to make some like a vase, and we had to make it for like a project. It was for a client. And so we had to find a vase, and we're like, this looks like a vase. And it was whatever that like expensive coffee thing of yours was.
The Chemex.
The Chemex.
Yeah. I remember Kevin coming in. I still don't know what it is, and I've never used one. And I remember Kevin coming in being like, what are you guys doing with that? We're like, I don't know. We were just trying to, it's for a client. Okay, we'll put it back, I swear.
It is though. It's like a hipster vase. Like you were ahead of your time, Chelsea, without even knowing it. Because there's coffee shops that you walk in and they've just like they've got like flowers and stuff like sitting in these Chemex makers.
Yeah,
look at that. Yeah. Look at that Griffin-Wink trend setting.
Trend setting by accident. But I mean, that was what was, I loved our setup over in Lubbock. That's where we had kind of our corporate office, and we've all been kind of working remote for the past year and a half, but that was fun. I mean, we had at one point with Brian brought in a kegerator, and we're like, Brian, what are you doing? He's like, we're making beer this Friday, like out of nowhere. And so like, that was a blast. And so it's fun to have those conversations in the actual break room when you have kind of all of these different things that are bringing you together as a team. So I think one of the big things that we've been trying to navigate, like as coworkers, is how do we keep that like vibe alive? How do we actually keep like having fun with each other? Because that's where like a lot of crazy ideas come from. Like all these, like whatever I kind of miss being able to like walk into a break room or walk into somebody's office and have a conversation. And then all of a sudden there's flowers in a Chemex for a client's photo shoot. Like
for sure.
It's more spontaneous, but so I mean that's kind of why I wanted to have you two on, because I just wanted to try and recreate some of that magic, some of that hype. And so my big question to just kick us off and see what comes of it is, what are y'all hyped about in our world right now? If it's at our agency or just in the world of advertising, what's getting y'all pumped?
I will let Chelsea go first, because I want to hear this.
Good delegating as the president. He's like, well, Kevin, for my first answer, I will let Chelsea go first.
Yes.
Great question.
Like,
Chelsea, go ahead.
He has to answer. I'm obviously going to let him answer. I was going to say Brian go first. Thank you. I'm so glad you asked me this question. So really, like, in terms of hype, everything's hype, but really, I guess in terms of trends is like everything after 2020, we all know is different. And so, and it seems like, and I know we talk about this a lot in the office, is everything that did happen in 2020 and everything that started trending last year, for the most part, is to stay. A lot of the things that started trending last year are staying. And I'll give you some examples of kind of what I'm talking about. A big trend last year and one that's still trending this year is user generated content. So people taking their own content and big brands using it themselves as like professional content. And it's funny because, and that kind of ties into all the trends that I'm thinking of right now are like all kind of tied into this user generated content. So like you think of, especially with people at home, people couldn't go out and film professionally. And so if you think about the things that you saw in 2020, a lot of it was people at their houses videoing for Apple, or this and that.
I think it was the Super Bowl commercial for Walmart, where it was all the phone video from all of their different workers at Walmart. So they used user generated content from iPhones for a multi-million-dollar production.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I think they did something, and don't quote me, it wasn't, maybe it wasn't Pampers, but a lot of like babies and new moms and stuff. And it's just moms like videoing kind of like their kids and stuff, because that's all kind of the footage that you can do. But people learned that actually resonates really well with people. Yeah. Kind of like seeing it in action and seeing it, like it really increases authenticity and credibility with people. And people still see it.
Well, it like played off the whole influencer vibe. So like what influencers have been trying to do over the past maybe 10 years now even is convince people that this is a more authentic way of presenting a product. And I think that maybe got a little bit lost maybe over the last 3 or 4 years when there's been a huge like corporate push. So all of a sudden you'll see like an Instagram model who is like sitting like by a lake, like in a bench, like on a picnic blanket or something. And then all of a sudden they're just like holding a bottle of like essential oils. And you're like that. So I almost feel like pre-pandemic, it was moving a little more towards like big corporate,
like pretty people holding stuff.
Yeah. So, and like, so this had to like reset that. And I think it did well to like reset it. Yeah. And show people that user generated content, this is what it can actually, this is how it can actually be effective. And right now it's going to resonate with us more because we're all going through this stuff that we're seeing. Like
so now all the trends really coincide. So it's user generated content. I don't know what this bruise is from. I bruise like a peach. I just can't look. What? Can y'all see it? I'm like using my hands and just like, oh, it's fine.
Focus.
User generated content, live streaming, which is really hand in hand. We're doing the same thing
right now. Yeah,
exactly. But it's the same thing. It's just real people talking real time about real stuff is kind of the same as user generated content, which is the same as TikTok, which is blowing up, which is the same as this and that. And so really all of the trends that are blowing up now kind of are all based around that trend.
Yeah. Just the
if you
trend
think
of
about it.
people wanting to feel like they're a part of something while we weren't all able to be like together, right? That feeling, fostering that feeling of togetherness, that influencers tried to poke at a little bit, 2017, 2018, 2019. And then in 2020, all of a sudden, when togetherness is the one thing that everybody wants, or at least now they're admitting that that's the one thing that we need right now, that then it opens up the gate to more conversations that are more real,
That's kind of what I'm
influencers that
thinking.
are being real. Yeah, I like that. And it was like the advent of Clubhouse, where it was just having a conversation with somebody else on your phone. And I don't know the stats behind it, but it seems like a reason that might have blown up in 2020. This whole idea of just jumping on a random conversation on your phone and hearing what others have to say, it might not have been as effective had we in 2019 or 2 years from now, when when we aren't primed to want like any sort of interaction we can, like the same way that Eric and I were talking about, like how great it would be to get everybody on a call to talk about something that wasn't just like a meeting for work, and like just share some of our thoughts and ideas, like in the same way that idea resonated with everyone in the office a little bit more now than if we were just in the office anyways, or maybe we were always a company that worked from home, and so this has always been the norm. But now we really are seeking that sense of togetherness, and not only wanting to just like hang out with each other, but also share it with whoever else decides they want to listen across like YouTube and Facebook. So I think that's kind of at the core of a ton of what's going on right now. What do you think,
So
Brian?
You ready?
What?
I wanted to give Chelsea her moment.
Oh, man.
Brian, please, let's hear what sort of magic you have to say now.
So here's my thing. I think user-generated content is definitely trendy right now, but I don't know how sustainable it is. And the reason for it is, and I'm going to show off a little pop culture knowledge here. Jake Paul just got done with his boxing match, and in an interview with him, they were talking about. Right? No, he won.
Wait, he won? I don't follow that guy. All right,
I don't either.
He's like the only one of these like influencer boxers that can actually box. Like I feel like.
But here's the deal. Here's the deal: is they asked him why is he going into boxing and why is he doing this new? He's created this whole new channel of these prize boxers and just kind of reinventing this whole boxing for money and everything else. And they asked him why he was going in that direction. He said, because being an influencer is not sustainable. The moment you stop posting 4 or 5 times a day, you start losing your followers, you start losing your sponsors and those types of things. So the strain and the stress of being an influencer is not long-term because your followers are so fickle. And if you're a brand and you're trying to use user-generated content and you're trying to use influencers and everything else, how fickle are they going to become with your brand if they're fickle with the influencers that you're using? And the other side of it is when you use user-generated content, to an extent, you lose, in my opinion, you lose a little bit of credibility and you lose control of messaging. And I think user-generated content is definitely a millennial thing. It's why millennials like it so much. But for people who are not millennials, it's not credible. It's not. It might be cool, but it's not something that's going to lend itself to the sales cycle or to your decision-making process or anything else, because it's not credible. And you get a lot of this from the political scene right now with so many people putting out so many different opinions and everything else that all of a sudden you don't know what is credible and what's not. And so to me, there's been a lack of credibility to user-generated content because you just lose it. You lose, back in the day, before my time, back in the day, you had 4 or 5 television stations and several radio stations that you went to actually get news. It wasn't opinion-based stuff. And when you put your brand in those types of situations, it creates more credible lines of thought or process for these brands in their life cycles or in the decision-making cycle. So I think you lose a bunch of it there. But it's not to say it doesn't have its place. I'm with you guys.
Exactly.
I think it's got its place, but you can't use it as
alone
as
it
base.
Can't be the core of your brand, right? Or you can't even use it as the way to like boost your brand on like a permanent basis. Like, hey, we're going to move only to hiring brand influencers on social media platforms. It's got to be strategic, and it has to be to serve a specific purpose.
If anything, it would be like a campaign. It would be a campaign would be that, not like that can't be like your brand strategy, because you're
not
completely
like your value
right.
proposition. Yeah,
because Brian's completely right, and that's a good point to bring up. Is like brands that come on.
Thanks,
brands
Chels.
that Brian is a good thought, because the way I made it sound is that like user generated content is like the way to go. That's not what I was saying.
The future, man.
Yeah, it's the future. No, but it's a great way to connect if done correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question.
Marketing strategic campaign.
Here's a question. Back in early days of advertising, you had a foundation, a traditional foundation, and this is kind of what you built your advertising on. Do we still have that foundation today, or is it just so diversified that campaigns go sporadically throughout, all with the same direction, the same thing, but there's no foundation? Used to, it was television. You built your brand off of what you could put on television, and then when you did additional advertising outside of television, it was based off of the vibe and the feel of television. Is that still relevant today?
Or should it be more like I don't know, because I feel like there's so many new platforms and softwares and services and everything popping up that if your brand is just one service, if you build your brand around a single platform, it's going to be obsolete. So this is where we get into, and I think a lot of brands are doing this. They're building the story first. They're telling a story. They're building a brand image, not based around a specific platform, but based around, some value propositions and, where they want to be as far as the larger cultural conversation, because that lasts a lot longer. Once you have your story down, once you have the language that you're going to promote to people as here's who we are as a brand. And, even sometimes regardless of the product we make, this is why you want to be involved in us as a brand rather than involved in us as a product, like Coca-Cola. That they've done a lot of this is like, oh no, you're going to buy in on our brand, whether you drink our products or not. And by the way, we own so many different companies. You're going to drink our products, whether,
you don't even know it.
You don't even know you're drinking our products. But it's Coca-Cola. You got, Dasani water is Coca-Cola.
Is it?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Boom. See, told you. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
No, seriously, I know. Exactly.
Yeah. So the idea that you build a story first, and then you have a team that builds out the strategy around that story. Because if you're hyped on a platform, and we've had clients that have done this in the past, where they come to us and they're like, I am all in on this specific platform, whether that be a TV station that they've been with for years, or a new digital platform that they read a blog on, where like, this is the wave of the future. I want to build my brand on this platform. And we have to kind of take a step back with them, and kind of not, because Brian always talks about like not being yes men, right? Like it's really easy to win business short term if you're focusing on a platform that they're already interested in. It's harder and more strategic to go to a client and say, look, I know you're hype on this on Spotify. Like you want to be on Spotify, or you want to be, but before that, it was just social media in general. But have you asked yourself why? And is your brand story and is your brand value strong enough to survive that? like just promoting yourself on that platform and just focusing on that platform. So yeah, that's a conversation we have like a ton of. And Chelsea, like that's like your main job as the brand strategist, right? Brian and I are kind of in that account executive sales position. And so it's you coming to us, like you came to me the other day and you just, you dropped something in the chat and you were like, I was reviewing what this client was doing. And here's 5 ways that I think that their brand needs to be updated here soon to accommodate like what their value proposition is now. But we've been developing that story for a while for them so that that's not out of left field. The changes that you are recommending feel very in line with the story you're telling, and it's not just focused on the platforms that they're promoting themselves on. It's strategizing to continue the narrative of a strong story that builds their brand.
Right. And at some point you have to think like everything needs to be consistent.
Yeah.
You can't continue to move forward with one, we're talking about platforms. You can't grow one platform and let one platform die because let's say people are still looking at that. It's going to look really strange.
Yeah.
You want to look consistent, or if it's your website, or if it's you're posting all the time on Instagram and you're doing Instagram shopping and your Instagram looks freaking awesome. But then the first thing to pop up on Google one time is Facebook. Someone goes to your Facebook and you haven't posted since 2017. Like that looks awkward to people.
But that's kind of what Brian was talking about, right? Like,
yeah, go for it. Okay.
Well, I was going to say that it's this idea that there are too many platforms out there to necessarily say that like this kind of even content creation or user-based content, it can't be the thing that you float on. It can't be the thing that holds you up because at some point you're going to shift away from that, still have that content out there. So it's like, how do you, and it's an interesting question.
It is. And to me, brands have to evolve. And sometimes that means evolving off of platforms.
Yeah.
Because if you go with Chelsea's logic here, then we should still be advertising on MySpace with Justin Timberlake.
Definitely not.
At some point, you got to just go. But we're not going to be there anymore.
Yeah,
we're not going to be. Well, I think that's interesting. Like, is there a way to like, as a brand, is there a way to really bow out of like a specific platform where like I wonder,
and like do you have to pick like you got
to do a mic drop.
I would say and like would you say, because I would still say a lot of our clients are still active on Facebook, so I don't think it's quite yet to mic drop Facebook versus Instagram, but
that's interesting though because of everything that just came down the pipes. Now the government is wanting Facebook to sell Instagram. Yeah, the feds.
The Fed, just like the man, Chelsea, it's the man. The man wants Facebook.
The man wants Facebook. The government wants Facebook to sell Instagram and WhatsApp.
Yeah, because it's the monopoly
really?
Thing. It's a class action suit. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I knew that.
Okay, so now what do you do then? Because if Instagram goes away from Facebook, then what's that going to do to Facebook and Instagram? They can't be combined anymore. They're going to be separated.
But then everyone's going to feel that, right? Like every brand that has a position on those platforms is going to feel that. And so it's like,
also backtrack with like, do y'all really think Facebook is not going to have any ties with Instagram? Seriously?
No,
really?
Personally, I don't. Cause like I go legally, back to this all the time.
Sure.
Like in the 90s, there was another class action suit and it was ruled in favor of the people and against Microsoft, that Bill Gates had to dissolve Microsoft and sell Microsoft. And that didn't happen. It was like, officially, if you look at the letter of the law, they lost that suit and they were told that they needed to disband, but then all sorts of like back alley stuff happened and, it
didn't happen.
And it just didn't end up, it ended up looking completely different. So what I think is going to happen that within this conversation of privacy,
but you're talking about two different things.
but kind of, I'm just talking about the dissolving.
It's all
of
just, this is
monopolies
all
in
just,
general.
this is us. This is Kevin and I being
Conspiracy theorists.
theorists. This
Right.
is not like,
No,
But
but
there's precedent for it, though, is what I'm saying. And like it because a lot of that revolves around privacy, right? Like they want to make sure that no one monopoly has enough of a hold around people's necks to
Which
basically
is
become
fair.
Skynet from the
Yeah.
Terminator. Like, and so Eric and I and Trace talked about this last week on the break room, and there was this idea that it's going to be somewhere in the middle where Google and Facebook and Apple are basically going to have to come out with all of this middle ground kind of stuff, like the dissolving of cookies, or having a little thing that dings when you're like a light that comes on when your camera's being used. All these things to make us think that they're taking steps towards further privacy or the dissolving of a monopoly, or, you know, it's all optics. So I honestly don't think it would be too detrimental to like the way people build their brands, because everyone does build their brands on social media. So I think it would be so detrimental to people's branding on social media and the way that like the status quo, that I don't think that we will see it happen like that. I don't think we will.
see, I disagree, because the whole Microsoft situation, there was a lot that was dissolved there, but that was all back room, and that was business functionality and everything else.
Yeah.
Right. You're talking about social media and influencing people's decision making and having a direct impact on demographics and people's beliefs.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
more
And
of their
what ads
day to
they
day.
see.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I don't, but it's going to be a
Mhm.
much more backroom stuff, because there's too much investment in what you're talking about for it to be
but
too
they're not going to be able to
forward-facing.
do that. They're not going to be able to do that. And let me tell you really quick one reason why, without getting political, and that is the politicians aren't going to let that happen. The politicians didn't care that that you used all of Microsoft's products for your day-to-day business execution stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Politicians care what social media outlets and what big tech is doing to control the flow of information today.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're getting mad about. That's what they're saying, your privacy, your data. They use those as keywords, but what they're really talking about is the decision-making data control. The politicians, these senators that are trying to get reelected, they sit there and go, oh, you're censoring him, but you're not censoring him. So therefore you must be leaning this way, and you're silencing us, and you're not silencing them. That's what it comes down to. They don't care about businesses using social media. They don't care about any of that
Brands
stuff.
using social media.
So it's really not a marketing issue that's being taken up.
It's a lot
but they're
bigger than
using
that.
it.
Yeah.
They're using marketing and data and privacy settings and all that stuff as a tool to disband this, so that they are on a more level playing field.
To talk about
So what was your
didn't want to get political, but
what was your original question then? What do you think, like, what will happen to Instagram once Facebook doesn't own Instagram?
Where is the,
as brand ambassadors, we have to be looking at what could possibly be happening, so that we're ready to advise our clients on the separation. It could be a couple of years. I mean, we don't need an answer right now, but we do need to be cognizant of the situation, because it's going to be a topic that's going to be brought up.
So and this is where Brian, for all of you listening, this is a good look into our account executives meetings, where Chelsea and I are really hyped up on like something we've figured out or a direction we think is coming, and Brian's like, children.
No. To circle it back up, I think user-generated content is fantastic and great, and you should
touch
use
back
it on the
that,
platforms
I
that it needs to be
disagree.
used on.
I agree, and I was thinking about that again after you said your point. Kevin and I were talking about I'm talking user-generated content in terms of, I guess, TikTok, which y'all know I love TikTok. People watching, I love TikTok. I'm on TikTok all the time.
I'm surprised she didn't say follow me at.
Yeah, no, I don't post good TikTok. I love getting on TikTok. I did post, side note, I posted my cat knows how to sit and lay down. My cat knows tricks, and I got 300 likes. So
Nice.
Pretty much
I'll tell you,
famous.
Megan needs to post some TikTok videos of the goat that watches her work.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that.
Yeah, our graphic designer just like I don't even know what's the story there.
Yeah. Okay. So our graphic designer, Megan, shout out Megan. She, I think at the time was living with her sister, and her sister has goats in her backyard. And like, so like the goats just come up and stare, two of them come up and just stare at her in her window all day. Like this close, like right on the other side of her laptop.
Content. That's 2 million views right
it's
there.
It's pretty funny. It really is funny.
So Brian, so when you're talking
my point about user-generated content though was just to say that like the Super Bowl, like it was still incredibly professionally produced user-generated content. Like they still compiled them, edited them, and then posted them at the Super Bowl. It's not like I could have live streamed at the Super Bowl. Like that is a horrible idea.
It served a very specific purpose to meet a specific goal.
Yes.
And that's my point with the user-generated content is user-generated content is great as long as it's professionally used and done right and produced correctly. If you're just a small business owner and you are using user-generated content, in the middle of your store, and you're like, we just got this in today and blah, 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 and everything else. If it's not done right, it's not going to resonate.
Yeah.
And so, there's a difference between produced user-generated content and just having your
or user-generated content
kids,
that's part of a larger story.
Go out and do a bunch of stuff.
So I feel like you've been leading this way, Brian. So I feel like I need to ask you the question that you've been wanting me to ask you. What do you think we need to be focusing on then? Or do you have any sort of trends that you feel like we should be on the front end, whether that be an actual platform or just an idea, like a way of looking at things? Where do you think we're headed next?
So, well, first of all, the comment about, you guys get all excited and then I come in, I just try to get you guys to look at a different side of it.
Oh, no, I know.
And so that you look at it wholeheartedly instead of just because
I think the three of us are the biggest devil's advocates in this office. I would say.
I'm telling you, but I get
and Eric.
And I have to say, you guys do the same thing to me. I get fired up about certain things, and then you guys are going, "Hey, let's slow it down just a click here and look at from this point."
Brian, we don't own a speedboat, and I can't train a Chihuahua to do that in the next 2 weeks.
You could if you wanted to.
We probably need to go a different campaign direction.
If you can think it, you can accomplish it. That's all I'm going to say.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so here's what I'm excited about right now is I'm seeing a shift, and we talked about this in our AE meeting the other day. I'm seeing a shift in right now a little bit of some old tendencies coming back. And what I mean by that is these big tech firms, Google, Apple, all these guys are starting to eliminate cookies, and they're starting to really hold back on some of the analytic data that we're pulling up. And for the longest time, when all of this was kind of the Wild West and you could go in and pull analytics, and we really got comfortable going in and going, here's the analytics, this is showing success, this is what the numbers are telling us what to do. And I think now that they're pulling some of that back, it's going to separate the marketers from the execution people. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's going to separate the people who know how to look at things from a marketing standpoint and go into it and say, okay, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's how we're going to do it. Here's the story we need to be telling. This is how it's going to impact your brand. This is how we're going to gauge results versus the guys that just go out there and go, well, there's nothing to really talk about. This is the analytics. This is
the numbers say
this is what you're going to get. Yeah, it's black and white. Nothing about marketing is black and white. The execution of marketing is black and white.
Right.
But the whole management of a brand, there's nothing black and white about it. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I say all the time, marketing only fails for two reasons. You either take the right message and put it in the wrong spot, or the wrong message in the right spot. Well, here in the recent years, marketers are focused so much on the right spot that they forgot about the messaging.
Yeah.
In a lot of cases, a lot
and
of
you
situations.
you can get by in a lot of cases. And again, this is something that I've been touched. This has been my soapbox for the last little bit, is that you have so many digital marketing specialists and advertising agencies that are successful only because of like the software they use or the tech stack they put together, where you have these people that have figured out that they can run like a very specific strategy and just sell it to everyone. And granted, this is where legacy media before, like television, radio, this is the pothole that they fell into, is that they had one strategy to sell. And so all the salespeople had to sell that television was the place to be because it was the only place they could be. Where in the digital space, that's happening now too, where you have ad agencies that are selling a stack of 2 or 3 services that are, again, focusing on the placement, but these aren't the ones who are going to succeed into the future when you have less analytics and less data to be able to pull from to place all of this stuff. As we tighten up on kind of these privacy concerns, the ones that are going to be successful are like the true, ad men, Don Draper, like whatever it is, like these marketing professionals that are looking at it from the standpoint of the story and the person and the end user and the end goal, and not just the numbers. But it's going to end up being somewhere in the middle.
It is. And I think right now what's happening is you're starting to see the beginning of what's going to separate the professionals from the amateurs. Okay. Yeah. And what I mean by that is I'm going to throw a shout out to Chelsea Wink on this one. Anybody can go and open an AdWords account.
Yeah.
And can become certified in Google and place AdWords. But not everybody can do what Chelsea Wink does.
Yeah.
Not everybody can go in and single-handedly raise the conversions and everything else that goes with that, and be able to understand the strategies that goes into it. Running an AdWords campaign or a display campaign or anything else, anybody can go in and set those parameters up, but it takes knowledge, it takes understanding, it takes experience to make that more efficient and have a higher ROI more immediately. And I think what's going to happen right now, and what has been happening, is these small and medium-sized business owners are just going with the lowest bid on doing that. Well, when you go with the lowest bid, you get the lowest results. And so I think what you're going to see now is you're going to see people, not the amateurs, the people who just go in and set up AdWords and go, well, I can do it this way, and sell, packages or however they want to do it. I think what you're going to see now is you're going to see people not being able to make that transition to once the analytics go away. And the people who have been trained and have the experience of marketing and understanding marketing principles and foundations are going to be able to come in and do that. When I was selling television, I didn't have analytics to go in and sell. I had to go in and explain and show people a value for literally air. I mean, there wasn't a finalized product ever or anything else. I had to go in and justify and put a value point to airtime. Same thing with radio, guys. So I think that you're going to start seeing those people be able to bounce back because they have the experience of being able to not only justify, but to explain and manage a path forward.
Yeah. And that bubble, it's going to be, this happens in every industry, is you have a bubble burst. You have, it's kind of a 3-part story where things become easy. Things are hard. And the ones that are successful are the people that can really take a difficult situation and turn it successful, whatever the industry is. This happened in the food industry. This has happened in every industry you can think of. Like one big one is like the bourbon industry. And I just talk about that because I'm like a huge like Scotch and bourbon and whiskey nerd, but this is happening there too. But the idea is that something is hard and you have professionals that become professionals because they are the ones that are able to figure out how to do it. And those professionals figure out ways to make it easier, and it gets easier and easier and easier and easier and easier. More and more people try and do it, more and more people try and do it, and you have this bubble of people all of a sudden where the marketplace for whatever it is saturated with companies and professionals that are writing the original work of kind of the initiators, but that can only last for so long, and eventually the bubble has to burst. And whether that be, whether the bubble is popped by these monopolies pulling the analytics out from under our feet, or whether it is truly the free market of consumers that determines that this product or this software or that whatever space it is oversaturated, and we need to return to a higher quality of whatever it is, and then it's going to go back down, and then you're left with, maybe not to the same extent as the beginning, but you're left with a core group of professionals that have now learned through both of those phases, and they're able to now create that value again in the way that it was done before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, think about it this way. In the last 3 months, you have had Apple come out and hide their cookies and block third-party groups, right?
Yeah.
You've had Google come out and make a massive update to the way that their AdWords was managed or is managed,
and their
and
analytics
executed.
and their tags manager and everything.
Their tags manager in the last month, you've had tags manager and analytics change.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you stand back and you look at it, really at the end of the day, who do you think is going to be able to withstand all these changes? Is it an agency like ours, who was one of the first 40 digital agencies in North America accepted to an invitation-only platform because of our results and because of the way we managed and grew our digital marketing campaigns? Or is it going to be the person that just graduated or is kind of a freelancer that just throws this together and doesn't really work the knowledge side of it?
Yeah.
And there's a place for both of those. I'm not saying bad against anything else, but at the end of the day, one of those two groups is more sustainable. And when you're spending hard-earned dollars right now, which one do you want really managing that particular campaign for you? The one that has stood the test of time and the one that's been growing and understands it, or the one that can get you quick, cheap results? So
that's what I have friends. Go ahead.
Go for it. No, all I was going to say was I have one other thing. I know we're getting close to time, but I have one other thing that I'm really excited about too. And I don't know if it's a marketing trend or a operations trend, but
or both.
One of the things that I preach all the time to AEs and to clients and everything else is our job is to get people to the door. Once they get to the door and they start interacting with the company, then it's up to that company to close the sale, to earn the business and everything else. And so there's always been this disconnect between, we can get a lot of people there, but if you don't close them, it's not our fault. That's on you. That's an operations issue, right? So now there's this new there's this new industry that's really helping us bridge that gap. And it's companies, it's like text messaging and review based and all those things. It's companies like
reputation
Podium.
management. Yeah. So the idea of reputation management being this middle ground between the agencies, the leads that are coming in from someone like us and the sales team of a company that needs to somehow figure out how to close those leads. So there's this middle ground, and that takes the brand built by the ad agency and pushes it through and makes sure that it is well fostered by a sales team. So reputation management. Sorry.
Yeah. No, and that's fine. And we talk about it all the time, where our messaging has to be the voice of the company. It has to be obtained when somebody goes in or interacts with that company. It can't just be this cold handoff. And companies like Podium do that. And, and Kevin, you work with Podium a lot more than I do, but if you want to briefly explain Podium, but to me, it is one of the coolest things for these new businesses or these businesses to engage with their customers, because I mean, three real quick facts or statistics on this. Over 100,000 businesses use Podium. 1 in 3 cell phone users in the US has been reached by a Podium customer. That's insane.
Yeah.
But it's people like my wife. She doesn't want to call anybody. She's not comfortable picking up the phone. She will, but she isn't going to just pick up the phone and have a conversation, but she sure will text with them. And she'll reach out through email and everything else. These people that are putting chats on their websites now, that what I like about Podium is it starts on the website. You can go to the website, chat with them, but it goes immediately into a text message thread, and then it can be transferred to somebody in the business to handle that directly, and the whole thread stays intact. So when you get transferred off to someone, they can look at and review the conversation so that they're very quickly brought up to speed. That's just one of the things, but I think that that's really the direction that this is going. I mean, there's a reason that Podium is the only reputation management or review-based software that Google has invested in. Yeah. And if Google's investing in this, then, I mean, they're the 800-pound gorilla in the room. If they believe in it, then it's going to become something. It's going to become a little bit more prevalent. But, things like, well, I'll let you talk about Podium a little bit, Kev.
Well, when I kind of presented the question to y'all, what are you excited about in advertising right now? I was hoping that we would get to this idea of reputation management, because I do think that it is a really important way to bridge the gap between creatives and the businesses that we're working for. So the conversation too often in an ad agency is, well, we're just going to work over here with the information you give us, and then we're going to present you these leads, and then it's up to you to do what you will with them. And we've fought the gaps in communication that brings for years, right? So because you can never be sure. All you can do is make recommendations and train, but then you just kind of have to hand it off. And so any sort of software or platform or mentality or methodology that allows you to more effectively facilitate a handoff between the creation of a lead and the closing of business is really, really important. And I think just now is the software game and the digital marketing game presenting something that works really, really well to do so. Reputation management is not new, right? This idea that we would build campaigns around follow-up, around a salesperson following up with somebody that if they just put a new roof on somebody's house, following up to ask how we did, to remain accountable, to have do you have any referrals that you could hand to us? That basically the creation of a community around what it is you're doing, and then or even just basically having leads come in and then following up with them in a timely manner. We for years have created these kind of middle of the road campaigns that are focused on training up the sales team how to use the leads we're bringing them. And so these reputation management softwares are trying to resolve that issue. And that's where Podium comes in. So Podium is a company that we like a lot, and it's been part of our emerging trends conversation for a while. But what they do is they are a single platform from which you can basically communicate with your contacts through text message. So that was the basis of it. And that's what they found interesting, or that's what they found that people found interesting and useful, was that they didn't have to wait on a web chat for somebody to respond back. And if they left the website, they would lose the chat. They didn't have to be called and solicited from endless phone calls, they didn't have to call somebody to get the information. The idea that it's all text-based, because most people have a device that they can receive and send texts on. But then from there, this idea that the most important thing, one of the most important things you can get from somebody that you've closed business with is the validation of a review, of a testimonial that you can then push forward to show others that you are who you say you are and you can do what you say you do. That's what Google's doing with their Google Local Services. It's a way of saying, hey, we vetted these companies and we believe that because of the background check we've done, we're actually going to present them to you as kind of this next level of credibility. That's also what reviews across Google and Facebook and Yelp and wherever else do. And so Podium also allows you to send single link text messages where it's a one click to leave a review. And what Podium is doing through just the very simple idea of people would rather communicate via text message, just that one idea. It's the concept that people would rather text. They've created a platform that facilitates a full handoff between marketing and sales and allows you to accept payments and schedule appointments and leave reviews and have follow-up and then take those contacts and move them into a campaign later on where you're going to send them an SMS, an SMS update that says, hey, it's been 6 months. Would you mind if we came out and checked on your roof? That sort of thing. And so as far as emerging trends go and platforms that are facilitating important parts of the sales process, we think that Podium and reputation management softwares that really take into account how people want to be doing business, that's what's those services are going to be very successful, and those agencies that can utilize those services are going to also be very successful.
And that's all the time we have for today.
Yeah, right.
Kevin took up the last 15 minutes to say people would rather use their phones than talk and pay through their phone and get reviews through their phone and everything else. Typical Kevin explanation.
Right? But it's okay. So here's the problem: is Brian said, "I don't know, Kevin. You know more about it. Why don't you tell us about it?" As soon as you said that, that gave me full reign to just go.
I know
that was.
You would think after all these years, I would know.
You would know
to give you a cap.
Okay. Well, what else were you going to say? Do you think you could have said it better?
Yeah. What I would have said is, right now, people would rather take their text messages.
Kevin's leaving.
You can get reviews. You can get payment through your text messages.
That's just not how Kevin talks.
Disputes.
That's right. That's what it does. Like I added the why. I added, if you are listening to this live stream, you want the why and you want the context and you need to know why we care about the systems like this.
Okay. You know what's funny though? I just watched a masterclass right before we came on here with Neil deGrasse Tyson, or what's his name? Tyson. Yeah. And he did about a 4-minute thing about intelligent people use less words to get their point across.
Fine. That's everyone's motto for me is 30% less words, Kevin.
I'm just joking. I'm just as big of a talker as you are, if not more. So
yeah, you're just mad that wasn't 5 minutes that you got to talk.
I know. No. I was sitting there watching the time just dwindle down, going, we have a 3 o'clock meeting, and I'm not going to be able to add anything else.
What else do you want to add, Brian? You got 3 minutes.
No, what I like about
we should probably add that digital marketing is on the come up, and you should use it, and everyone's using it. And
okay, fine.
But really that's what it is. It's shout out Chelsea Week. It's digital marketing. It's shout out Eric SEO. It's all the back end stuff and that's what I was going to say quickly earlier, was that like I have friends that quote unquote do digital marketing, and I was told what they do, and I was like, you don't do that. You don't do
digital marketing.
Like, I was like, I know what digital marketing is, and it's not that. So it's, it is definitely a lot of behind the scenes, but I think 2020 in general put it on the forefront is basically the whole thing of it. Like now, ways to get in front of your consumers digitally, and like even what we're doing right now is on the forefront of it versus what it would have been in 2019.
Yeah.
So my 1 minute wrap up is, I think there's a lot to be excited about in new trends and digital marketing, and I believe that all of them have a place. Everything we talked about today has a place, as long as it's used correctly on the correct platform, and it's not tried to be something that it shouldn't be or that it's not. And to just make sure that you're protecting the brand at all times. It doesn't matter what platform it is. You have to be careful of the brand that you're marketing, and using it correctly, because it's funny how in today's world, one tweet can destroy a brand. One wrong slip of a comment or anything else can have detrimental impact on brands. And so just be careful and be thoughtful of what you're doing.
Great. Thanks for wrapping us up, Brian. Thanks for bringing that all back around. We hope everybody listening has enjoyed just going back and forth with us. We hope that there were some tidbits in there that y'all found helpful. And we hope you'll join us again next Wednesday at 2 Central, 1 Mountain. So you can find the Break Room on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and that's probably where you're watching it right now. Or if you're listening later, it means that you found us on Spotify. We are up on Anchor, on Spotify, as a podcast, post-produced, kind of day after sort of stuff. And follow us on social media at GriffinWink for updates on this and other things we've got going on. And thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Chelsea.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thanks, Kevin.
And I'm sure they'll be back here pretty soon. Hi, peace out. All right. We'll see y'all later.
See ya.
Bye.